Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on intellectual property rights in pharmaceutical product development. In celebration for the National Intellectual Property Month, Centro Escolar University postgraduate students are conducting this webinar on intellectual property rights in pharmaceutical product development with our distinguished guest from National San Yat-sen University, Taiwan, CEU, National Research Council of the Philippines, and Intellectual Property Office, Philippines. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You're listening in using your computer's speaker system by default. If you would prefer to join over the phone, just select telephone in the audio pane and dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to today's presenter by typing your questions into questions pane of your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentations. We'll collect this and address them during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. Now, we would like to start this program through a prayer followed by a national anthem.
quietness and trust. I will soar with you above the storm. Oh, yes, I will. Father, you are king over the flood. I will be still, know you, oh God, yeah, yeah. When the oceans rise and love is born, I will soar with you above the storm. Yes, I will. Yes, I will. You are king over the flood. I will be still, know you, my God. When the thunders roll, ocean rise and say, I will soar with you above the storm. You are king over every single one. I will be still, know you are God. Oh, yes, you are. Oh, yes, you are. I will be still, know, oh, God.
formally begin this webinar, I would like to invite Dr. Cecilia Santiago, Dean of School of Pharmacy, CEU, to deliver the opening remarks. Dr. Santiago, you may now take the floor.
Okay, I don't know if my internet connection is okay because I saw that my internet connection is unstable. Am I okay? Am I okay? Okay, thank you, thank you.
Yes,
Okay.
po, we are hearing
So
you po.
maraming salamat. Isang okay. Isang magandang hapon po sa lahat. A very pleasant good afternoon to all of you with our diverse attendees in this afternoon's webinar. Students from different school, guests, important people pertaining to the topic, organizers, maraming salamat sa inyo for inviting us over and for having us having this seminar again open to everybody. So again, to the CEU Graduate School Master of Science in Pharmacy, Pharmaceutical Product Development class under the mentorship of Professor Dr. Erwin Tallier. Thank you for inviting me. And in advance, may I say congratulations to the group for organizing this webinar and for choosing a topic for discussion that is very relevant, especially for those inclined in drug discovery and development. Discovery of a drug moiety and eventually to develop a novel drug entity and a formulation. According to Google, on an average, it takes at least 10 years for a new medicine to complete the journey from initial discovery to the marketplace. With clinical trials alone, it takes 6 to 7 years on an average. The average cost for research and to develop, it is about $2.6 billion. We could just imagine the COVID-19 vaccine. As they develop it in a very fast mode, magkano kaya ang nagastos nila? So the process and the phases of drug discovery and development is not that easy, and it is not that fast. One is to spend so much brain cells, time, money, and perseverance just to have a novel drug or a new drug. Very precious indeed. However, one cannot deny the presence of opportunities, the presence of intellectual robbers or theft. But just in a wink of an eye, it robs your intellectual property. And your intellectual discovery is no longer yours, but owned by somebody. So, just like many legal laws that protects the people's physical property and rights, we have this intellectual property law that protects the people's mental labor or creative or as artistic works. So tonight or this afternoon, hindi pa pala gabi, no? So this afternoon, this webinar will revolve around the legal aspect of product protection, especially on the development of pharmaceutical products. And we are very lucky to have with us experts in the field, no less than Dr. Erna Yabut, the CEU Vice President for Research and Evaluations Office and our Dean in the Graduate School, Ma'am Rosa Fernandez of the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, and Professor Jean Huang Xu from the Institute of Biomedical Sciences, National Sun Yat-sen University in Taiwan, we thank you for being with us this afternoon. I know, despite of your busy schedule, you generously share your time, your knowledge among our attendees. And I'm pretty sure, looking into your credentials, our attendees will have a full mind of knowledge and take home to think about, to be inspired for, and to apply in the near future. So again, I want to say thank you, Mom and Sir, for being with us this afternoon. We are very, very privileged to have you. So once again, I say good afternoon to everyone, and my prayers that all of us will always be safe in body, in mind, and spirit. God bless everyone and good luck for this afternoon session. Magandang hapon po sa inyo lahat. Thank you.
Thank you for that wonderful remarks, Dr. Santiago. Moving on right along, to introduce our first speaker, I would like to call Ms. Christianella Viray, RPH. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
So, welcome everyone. It's a great pleasure for me to introduce our distinguished speakers today who are going to share to us their knowledge about the intellectual property rights in pharmaceutical product development. Our first speaker is from Central University. She took up her Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education, major in mathematics, minor in statistics in University of the Philippines, Lima. She finished her master's degree and Doctor of Philosophy in mathematics.
Sorry for that inconvenience. To introduce our first speaker, I would like to call Ms. Maria Michael Ababan. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon to everyone. Our first speaker is from Centro Escolar University. She took up her Bachelor of Science in Secondary Education, major in Mathematics, minor in Physics in the University of the Philippines, Diliman. She finished his master's degree and Doctor of Philosophy and Mathematics Education in Centro Escolar University. Currently, she is the Vice President of the Research and Evaluation Office of the same university, as well as the Dean of the Graduate School, again of Centro Escolar University. She is also the President of the Philippine Society for Educational Research and Evaluation and a chairman both for CEU Research and Development Foundation and U-Built Research Consortium. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Erna Volante Yabot.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the very kind introduction. Is my audio clear to everyone?
Yes,
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. May I be allowed to share for my presentation? May I request the host to please allow me to present my slides. Okay, so while waiting for that, greetings to everyone. And of course, no, since this is an activity of the graduate school, I welcome you and I thank all of you for joining us in this webinar, okay, organized by the pharmacy students under the leadership of Professor Dr. Erwin Follier. Okay, so I'm now allowed to share. Thank you very much. Okay, first is allow me to greet everyone. Okay, a happy World IP Day. This is the month, and this is also the week that we have to celebrate this World Intellectual Property Day. Okay, and I'm glad that you have thought of organizing a webinar on IP and the rights as a way of celebrating the World IP Day. And also, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the organizing committee for this webinar, particularly on the area of pharmaceutical products development. Because when we talk IP, when we talk intellectual property and its rights, okay, so it cut across several disciplines, but in today's webinar, so we will be focusing on the pharmaceutical product development. I know, and in fact, I am, very happy about this kind of activity being conducted by the pharmacy students. I was of the same activity, I think 2 weeks ago, but by the PhD pharmacy students. Now this is the group for master's student that we all know that this is one of the activities of pharmacy students in the graduate school. But of course, more than what we consider this as an activity, you value most on the learnings that you will get from this kind of arrangement. Okay, so meaning to say you really go beyond the classroom, the walls, and even the environment that we are using now, which is online. So this is different from the online, the synchronous, and the asynchronous modality of learning. And I congratulate you on that, and I commend those who are involved in organizing this such a wonderful activities. Okay, very creative in a sense that you were able to invite different resource person, even from other countries and from other institutions, in line with the topic today. And likewise, I would like to thank you for inviting me to be part of this learning activity. I should say this is an active learning activity. Traditionally, active learning has been associated with the face-to-face where we were used before. And now that we are in the online classes, so sometimes we focus more on the materials that we uploaded online, okay, including other materials such as watching videos. But the webinar you have prepared, okay, will serve as a a technique, a different technique that would focus on student-centered learning. And this is a collaboration because you even invited other participants from other schools. So I know that you are going to value exchanges of ideas, Okay, and there will be some collaboration at the end of the activity. So again, thank you for this opportunity to be in this webinar that you organize. Now, before I start with my talk, okay, that was given to me, I would like to make a disclosure first. Okay, one, I am not an IT specialist nor a lawyer. Okay, my talk will focus on, this is more on sharing on the journey of the CEU on how we instituted the IP rights and its alignment to the university policy. Okay, and the process that we went through from the crafting to the approval up to the implementation of this CEU IP policy. Okay, so go to the next slide. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, I'll be, looking into the alignment of the IP rights and, of course, the university policy. So this is more on the sharing, okay, of this particular topic. And I should say that, the journey that we went through is not that easy. You can see later, no, when we started and when it was completed and finally approved, and now it is being implemented. Okay, so though there is already a structure as far as the content of what should be the IP policy of the university, but of course, no, we have to consider, okay, several aspects of that policy that will definitely affect some other university policy. Okay, so, and of course, no, we also look into the roles and the responsibilities of the different sectors in the university. So there were, a lot of deliberation, discussion, meetings on this, and even consultation with other groups, with other stakeholders, for us to get their inputs and to know their take, okay, on certain aspects of the policy. So first and foremost, let me begin with, simple understanding. Of course, no, before we fully understand what is this and how we were able to arrive at this IP rights, the IP policy, and its alignment to the university. So we have to know first, okay, generally, what is this IP? What is this intellectual property? If you look at references, okay, and even the World Intellectual Property Office, okay, you can see a definition of this IP, but to make it simpler and for us to, fully understand anyway, that the next speaker will be, discussing more on the details of this. So generally, when we talk about IP, it refers to creation of the mind. Okay, so whether it is an output from research, okay, or as an output of creative works, part of the creative works. So as long as it is an output of the research and also the creative works, then we can call it intellectual property. Okay, and when we talk about this, of course, coupled with knowing what is intellectual property would be the rights, okay, for those who invented that creation. Okay, so the IP rights refer to the individuals or a party right to own they create. Earlier, as mentioned in in the message of Dr. Santiago, so she reiterated the importance of this because, coming up with something else, okay, from the products, from the services as a result of the study, is not that simple. Okay, you spend so much time. You have to spend a lot in terms of resources. Okay, so that's why it is important that we have to be guided on what are these rights that we are, talking about when it comes to the intellectual property. Okay, so that's why, as a result of this, okay, there is really a need, okay, that the IP system, okay, whether it's from the institution or from the company or industry, it is better that there should be a strong IP system, and this can incite funding into knowledge development and thus promote innovation. Okay, so in today's global company, or I should say, as we look at the global economy, the knowledge is emerging as one of the most fundamental economic forces. So that's why there should be this such strong IP system. And this is particularly relevant, most especially at this time, and more so in your field, which is the pharmaceutical innovation, and even the output of this, no? Because the product that you might develop will depend on, how you protect, okay, and how you give support to the continuous investment before it reaches to the other groups. So it could be in a form of medical research or an application into, say, the patients or whoever the beneficiary of it. So developing a new drug, okay, and to be successfully bringing it. Okay. Yes. Hello. Am I still okay with the participants?
Yes po, Doc. Okay lang.
Okay. I thought I was cut. That's why there's someone who is calling my attention. So okay, that's good to hear that my connectivity is working well. So going back to what I am saying in relation to strong IP system. So this has something to do with, the main intention, okay, and that is in product development. And when we talk about developing a new drug and be able to make it successful in bringing it to the market, okay, we know that there is a risk. We know that it is quite long, okay, so that's why the lengthy and expensive venture, okay, so hindi madali, no, to come up with the product. That's why we have to, consider how are we going to make ourselves protected, okay, once we develop something. I got across this reading materials, okay, this is from Future Science, and I think this will also support what Dr. Santiago is mentioning earlier in her opening remarks. This is about, the factors that we have to consider when you develop new drugs, okay? So it says in this article that it cost a pharmaceutical company around $750 million, and it takes 12 to 15 years to bring to bring this to the market, okay, and be able to, be given to the patients. And of course, in the process of developing the drugs, okay, it says here that on average, out of every 5,000 to 10,000 compounds that a pharmaceutical company tests, only one will be likely to be approved. Okay, so, and that one, okay, it will be approved after clinical trials have been conducted. So there is what we call, very rigorous very big. That's why the companies really look into the protections of their patents. Okay, so I hope that that is also the main reason why this webinar was conceptualized, because of the importance, okay, of the patents when it comes to product development, particularly in the field of pharmacy. Okay, that's why, okay, the pharmaceutical IP rights are very essential if we want to continue this innovation. Okay, if we want to have a different perspective, okay, when it comes to medicine, and of course, no, we have to value also this kind of product development, especially now that we are facing this challenges. Okay, and I know because of this COVID, so there will be some challenges that we will be facing, and it calls for product development. So that's why pharmaceutical IP rights are very essential. Okay, so before I share the so-called journey of CEU in crafting, okay, the intellectual property, we started first with knowing what are the types of IP, and I suppose that you are familiar with this, but I will not tackle on the details of this type. The reason why I would like to present this is because through these types of IP, this is where we started, because we have to establish what's the scope of that policy. Okay, when we crafted the policy for the university, so what's the coverage of that policy? That's why we look into this different types of intellectual property. One is on the patent, because I mentioned earlier about innovation. So when we talk about patent, so this is about giving the right, and we say that this is an exclusive right granted to the invention. Okay, and at the same time, it also provides the patent owner, the inventor, with the right to decide or whether the invention can be used by others. So there is a decision process there. And in exchange of that right, okay, so the patent owner makes technical information about the invention publicly available in the so-called published patent document. Okay, so if, for example, you have an invention and that invention is for patent, so more or less, no, you can consider these items that I mentioned. Okay, are you willing to do that? Are you willing to share it? So these are the things that you have to take into consideration. Another that can be patented is, of course, through industrial design or model. Okay, so this is also under patent, and but because it has a different requirement, not necessarily giving all the information, the technical aspect, but this is also for patent. Another type of intellectual property is through the copyright. Okay, so what are these output that can be copyrighted? So usually when we talk about copyright, we use that as a legal term to describe the rights of the creators. Okay, and it usually apply to literary and artistic works. Okay, so works covered by copyright range from books, music, painting, sculpture, and films, to computer programs, even the databases, the advertisement, maps, and technical drawings, which is also for me, okay, it can be applicable in pharmacy. Coming up, for example, with a guidebook. Okay, so if you have that kind of output, okay, so that can be copyrighted. Okay, and it gives also a protection on your part, so that no one can just simply copy any part of that material that you have developed. Okay. Another type of IP would be the trademarks. Okay. So when we talk about trademarks, so this is just a sign that is capable of distinguishing the goods or services of one enterprise from those of other enterprise. So I cited, or I got one example here as a trademark. And even yung mga logos like the CEU logo, so we submitted that so that no one will copy, and together with the guidelines, so that even us in the CEU, we are guided on how we are going to use that that logos. We are guided on what would be the correct way, okay, of using that, because sometimes when you copy paste it, diba, na-alter siya. So we have this guidelines on how to follow, okay, because any alteration on this will be cause something else. Okay, this is like a non-compliance on the guidelines that we set for our logo. So that is also for the trademarks. Okay. Now, let me now go into the journey, okay, that we went through in the university. I saw here the participants are not just from CEU. There are participants from other institutions, okay? So for those who are considering to come up with the IP policy in their respective university, okay? So you may get some idea on how this journey. In fact, as I recall when I'm preparing this slide, sabi ko, it's been a while. It's been years already when we started with this. Okay, of course, when we thought of coming up with the IP policy, because we found out that in health sciences, okay, and our students have this undergraduate research, and there is a forum where students presented, faculty presented their research output. So we saw potential for product development, and also we identify creative works, okay, as a result of their research. So that's why we said that though it's a law, but of course, no, we have to look into the policy of the university when it comes to intellectual property. So that's why for us to be equipped on how we are going to write this IP policy, so we attended seminars on IP, okay, which was conducted by the IPO, the Intellectual Property Office. And since CEU has this university research committee, it's a standing committee of the university, whose task is, to prepare policies and even programs for the university when it comes to research. So that's why we included this activity for us, okay, for the URC. So we attended the seminars, and then we engaged our university legal counsel, because, when it comes to policy, when it comes to IP rights, so there are legality there. So that's why we involved our university legal counsel. And then from there, we had series of write-ups. As I mentioned earlier, it helped us a lot, no, when IPO conducted seminars, because we were oriented on what are the sections, what are the elements that should be included in that policy, okay? But of course, no, a lot of deliberation, because there are decisions to make for every policy, for every articles in that policy. So that's why we had this series of write-ups. And then we even have the consultation with the IP office. Actually, when we had the complete copy of this IP policy, I even submitted it to the IP office, the Philippine IP office, for them to, to review what we have written as far as the policy is concerned. Okay, and when they gave us, sort of approval in terms of the content, in terms of some legalities, in terms of requirements. So that's why I was able to present it to the Administrative Council, which is composed of the President and the Vice President. So this is the top management. And when we got the approval of that policy, so since CEU is an ISO certified, so we were able to include that policy in our quality management system manual. But before including it in that manual, there was a process, okay, and that is processing of what we call the document change request. And then since it is now part of our QMS, so it is now being implemented in the university. Now, I would like to walk through, okay, the participants who are here just to share what is the content of this IP policy. So as I mentioned earlier, no, in the journey that I presented, so all of this are translated into a document which we call it the CEU IP policy, and this is now part of our quality management system. Okay, so let me just go to this link.
Ay, hula-hula!
Okay. Did you see my screen?
Yes po, Doc.
Is it moving? Because I went to the link of the QMS. Did you see it?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay, good. Okay. So this is the quality management system manual. So earlier,
Doc, it was not directed po to the link.
it was not directed to the link.
Yes.
Okay, so let me just stop so that I can go to that particular. Okay. Here, did you see it? Okay,
Yes,
so this is
Doc.
what I am saying. Okay, so we have this quality management system manual. So this is like a Bible of the university. All the processes of the university are reflected here. So every now and then we have to consult from this if we are in doubt about our processes, because all the processes approved policies are here. So the CEU IP policy is under the research and evaluation manual, which is REM. Okay, did you see this? So this is arranged according to the manual. So we have the academic affairs manual, and this is the latest, the contingency operations manual. All of the processes that are being done during this pandemic. So meaning these are interim policies. So we put it here. The rest are the existing, the usual. So we have the financial, we have the general administration, the human resource, the internal audit. We even have the job description, the library manual. We have the manuals for Makati and Malolos, okay, their own processes there. We have the quality procedures manual and quality system manuals. These are the standards that we are following, and of course, quality initiatives that we design for our university. Then we have here the research and evaluation office, the registrar's office, and the student affairs office. So this is arranged alphabetically. Now, the IP policy of CEU is under the REM, Research and Evaluation Manual. Okay, please inform me. I'm going to click this. Did my screen change? Did you see?
Yes, Doc.
Okay, so I'm now in the research and evaluation manual. So everything here is electronically, operated. So when you click this particular manual of research and evaluation, you can see the content of it. Okay, so this is like a table of contents, and the intellectual property is under REM 12.0. Do you still see my screen with the changes?
Yes po, Doc.
Okay, good. So let me just open this so that I can share with you what are, the elements, what are the contents of this intellectual property policy. So for those who are planning to craft their own policy, So you can, refer to this as a guide, okay? So here, so this is now the manual itself. So we call it the CEU's intellectual property policy. So if you notice, the last effectivity date that we had, because every time we change, if there are some improvement because of certain standards and requirements, so we have to do some changes as well. So this was effective September 1, 2016. So ganun katagal. But okay, as we go down, in fact, as early as 2012, we started that journey already. Okay, and as I said, the Right Shop, the series of Right Shop, it took us. Okay, I think it took us a year for us to complete all of these elements, all of these dimensions of the policy, okay, the intellectual policy. Of course, no, in any policy, so there should be defined objectives. What is it for? Okay, and here we specify that as far as this policy is concerned, our objective would be, okay, this is for the conduct of scientific research, because we know that through this scientific research, we can generate knowledge, and at the same time, whatever that output that can be generated from the research, definitely the society will benefit from it. And of course, another objective is to promulgate the policies on IP, okay, as the university gains distinction as a reputable academic research institution, producing quality researches, technological innovations, instructional materials, creative works, and other intellectual outputs. That's why earlier, ang pinakita ko lang talaga as far as, information about IP would be the types of intellectual property, because that's where we started, because we have to know what would be the coverage, okay? And as far as the scope, so we identify what would be the scope of that policy, and in that scope, so we enumerated, okay, the reason why we have to know these different types. So meaning to say, the policy, this particular policy applies to copyright and related rights, trademarks and service marks, geographic indication, industrial design and materials, patents, utility models, layout, design, the undisclosed information, new plant varieties, creative works, and technology innovation. Because since we are an academic institution, and of course, no, as an academic institution, one of the functions is research. So we open the possibility that the research output could be any, okay, from these types. And then of course this policy, so we even reflected our references here. So this is based on the IP Code and Republic Act, okay, 10055, otherwise known as the Technology Transfer Act of 2009. And then the Intellectual Property Code of the Philippines. So in the policy, so we even have the so-called the general policy here. I will not go over with this because my time is limited. I just want to share with you what's in the policy, because as I mentioned earlier, those who would like to embark on this kind of activity for their institution, so more or less you have the idea. But of course, no, the nitty-gritty of this, how to write and what would be the components, of course, no, the IPO, the Intellectual Property Office, is very much willing to assist and provide support for the institution who are planning to craft or formulate their IP policy. So we have here, just to run through, okay, this particular policy. So we even included the definition of terms, kasi minsan doon nagkakagulo, di ba? There's a different understanding about the terminologies. That's why we included in the policy, okay, all the terms and expressions that are important, okay, when we talk about intellectual property rights. Okay, so lahat ng yan, okay, nandito. and even who is this inventor that we are keep on mentioning. It's like the research, diba? So about the author. So we have to define what is this. Okay. So here the inventor refers to the university personnel. So it could be student, okay, who is considered legal inventor of the work under relevant intellectual property laws. Okay. So that's why may mga terminologies dito. But because we have a legal counsel in our committee, so more or less, no, we have this, confidence that the way we define it is acceptable. Okay, so you have it here, but actually you can get a sample as well, okay, from the IPO on this policy. Okay, so we have a lot of this mga terms that we need to define, okay, because we would not want, some confusion or some misunderstanding about the terminologies. And then we even have the intellectual property ownership. Kasi ito rin, no? We had a deliberation on this, who will own, okay? For example, no, if there is an output of the faculty or the students as a result of their research, or even in some academic coursework, so we define it here. Okay, so lahat yan ay nandito. So starting with the copyright of works. Okay, so copyright ownership of works by university, academic, and research staff of students shall vest in the creator. Okay, and that is CEU, except under the following circumstances, in which we enumerated what are those. Also in the policy, the ownership by the university of patent and other IP rights. Okay, so yan din. That's also one thing that we have to be clear about. Okay, and the trademarks. Okay, so the university shall be the sole owner of the university logo and shall have the same registered with the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. Any use of the university logo shall require prior license or permission from the university. Okay, I think I mentioned that already. And then, of course, this is about the tangible research property or the research result, which cannot be the subject of any other kind of intellectual property protection, are presumptively owned by the university. In no case shall biological material in any form be the subject of patents or any form of acquisition. Okay. Now, I think you are more interested on this. I don't know what's the policy of your university, but because of the CEU intellectual property policy and rights, so we are clear on this, okay? That as far as student thesis, dissertation, so a student shall own the copyright of his or her thesis dissertation subject to any agreement with the university or external parties. The student shall grant to the university royal-free permission to reproduce, publish, and publicly distribute copies of the thesis dissertation in whatever form, electronic or otherwise. Okay, and then we have here mga conditions. Okay, if thesis dissertation contains information on an invention that may be patentable, the thesis may be required to be withheld in accordance with the following procedures. So I will not elaborate here, but what I would like to emphasize, okay, without this policy, then it will, cause a problem or discomfort or maybe some disagreement between the inventors and of course other parties. Okay, so we have here, okay, and even on the administration, okay, so all aspects of the IP policy must be clearly stated and defined, and even the provision that if in case there is a potential for commercialization, okay, and this will give, something to be an asset for the university. So meron ding ganong policy na kailangang tingnan. So every now and then we have to go back and look at this policy so that we are all guided in CEU. Okay, And there are other aspects here. I will not go into the details of this, okay? But just to give you or share with you, okay, what kind of IP policy that we have. And all of this has alignment, okay, with the university policy when it comes to the conduct, when it comes to the resources, when it comes to even the distribution, if there will be some commercialization, if there is a potential that the output, the research output has a commercial value, and definitely it has to be patented. So if in case it will go to this kind of level, the commercialization, so lahat yun diniscuss and then deliberate. So that's why we have this kind of distribution, okay, for the university and for the inventors. And then in the university, we even have a breakdown. If we said 40 here, okay, so what is the distribution of that 40? So there will be an allotment, there will be a portion that will go to the college or department where the inventor belongs, the administration of the IP. We even have a fund for innovation, and of course, some percentage for the contingency funds. So these are the items, these are the aspects that need to be discussed among, whoever in charge of the formulation of your IP policy in the university. Okay, so that's why because of this, okay, because of this policy, I'll stop so that I can share again my slide earlier. Okay, because of that policy, okay, we were able to, guided on how we are going to move forward with some of these results, some of these research outputs. In fact, even in 2015, we submitted, because CEU is known for health sciences. So there were two research outputs that we submitted for patent, and this is from the dentistry department, particularly in the CEU campus. Look, it was submitted, the application was submitted September 9, 2015, but only in 2017, so 2 years after, where the IPO Philippines released the approval of the registration of these two patents. One is on the wonders of buntot tigre, as a material in making dental floss, and also that can be used for suturing thread and gauze. And also another one is the property of okra that was found to be a glue-like, which can be used for denture adhesive materials. So this is just a sharing of the research output that we were able to submit for patents. And then the recent one, which is in 2017, is about the nanohydroxyapatite from the pink salmon fish bone as a direct pulp for cupping material. Again, this is also for from the School of Dentistry. So I think I was able to give some insights, especially those who would like to embark on this, and particularly in the product development. So please be guided with this policy on intellectual property rights, so that whatever stages your product development will be, so we are guided with all this policy. So again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to share the experience, the journey of the university, particularly the CEU, in coming up with the intellectual property policy. And I hope that you learned a lot, okay, which can be brought to your respective university, and of course, maybe from other entities. So again, thank you, and happy World IP Day to everyone. Maraming salamat. I hope my time is just enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Orna, for taking time out of your busy schedule, Doc, for sharing us your knowledge. It was a pleasure to have you, po. Thank you,
My
Doc.
pleasure.
Moving on to introduce our second speaker, I would like to call Miss Maria Michael Ababan, RPH. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Our next speaker is from the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, or IPOPHIL. She took her bachelor's degree in chemistry in Western Mindanao State University and finished her master's degree in public administration in Philippine Christian University and another master's degree in biological engineering in Mapua University. At present, she is now the Division Chief or Intellectual Property Rights Specialist 5 under the Chemistry Examining Division of the Bureau of Patents from Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines. She is also the point person on intellectual property and traditional knowledge and genetic resources, and a trainer for the IPOPHIL New Patent Examiners Training Program. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Ms. Rosa M. Fernandez.
Sige. I will share my screen, please. Yan. Yung ano ko.
Okay na po, ma'am.
Sige. Okay. Ano natin. Ito. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for that kind introduction. I would like to start my presentation by giving you the different services that our office, the Intellectual Property Office, offers. We have registration services, developmental, adjudication, and enforcement of IP rights. So Dr. Yabut mentioned about the different intellectual property rights. And here we have also the definition of what is intellectual property and how to protect these intellectual property rights. What rights do you get from your intellectual property rights? So Dr. Yabut mentioned that IP is creations of the mind. And how do you protect it? Of course, we have the different types, like the patents, utility models, industrial designs, trademarks, copyrights, and copyright. So these are the different forms of IP rights, and they have requirements for registration or grant. Okay. Here is an example of a medicinal product, and this is to illustrate that in a product you can have different forms of intellectual property rights. But if we are to focus our discussion on pharmaceutical products, the most appropriate type of intellectual property is invention patents. So here you can have an invention for the medicinal formulation, for the device, and the brand name also, for the logo, the slogan, or domain name, also under trademarks, and the advertising materials or the manuals under copyright. So in one product, you can have different forms of intellectual property rights. So this is good to mention that that kind of product is a research output of a university. And they developed this medicinal product, which is effective in treating certain allergies. So there are different forms, as we as I mentioned a while ago, you have patents for the formulation. You can have this design patent for the device. You can have a trademark for the logo, and you can have a copyright for the manuals. So for your intellectual property right, you start with the creation of your product. It can be, as Dr. Yabud mentioned, a result of your research output. Then, if there is there is an IP component like patent for your product, you protect it under intellectual property rights. Under the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, and then you utilize the product and commercialize it. So I would like to mention that for that nebulizer, the Allergo, it is widely commercialized. And then you have to enforce your rights against infringers. So patent is an exclusive right granted to the owner or the applicant by the government through the Intellectual Property Office. And for invention patent, the life of that patent is 20 years from the filing date. However, you have to disclose your invention in a patent document in exchange for that 20-year protection. So here is an example of a patent document. This is the bibliographic page of an international patent application. You have there the international classification for easy retrieval of the patent document. You have the filing date, which is the reckoning date for the assessment of patentability of the invention. If there is a priority or home application, it is also indicated in that bibliographic page. Then you can also see who is the applicant, the inventor, the title of the invention, and if there are drawings or figures, it will also be included in the bibliographic page. And you have the summary of the invention, just to give you an idea, or it gives the gist of the invention. And also, if it is an international patent, and if the home application is a Philippine application, you can see the designated states for this particular application. The designated states are PCT, or the Patent Cooperation Treaty member states. So this is a very popular example of a venom that was extracted from our very own Philippine deep sea snail known as Conus magus. So it was converted, the active peptide was used in the production of a potent painkiller, which is known as 1,000 times more potent than morphine. So this is the drug that was formulated out of the extract or the peptide from our deep sea snail. If you search for this is the patent document, and if you search for the patent number, you can retrieve the entire document. So where can you search this patent documents? You can search this in patent databases or in Google Patents. So you have the, I think you are familiar with the content or the structure of the patent application. So you have the specification or the disclosure, a detailed disclosure. You have the if there are description of the drawings, then you have the claims, which is the scope of your invention. And if there are sequence listings, you have to attach it, okay, in your patent application. Sorry, I have to go back. Sorry, previous slide. So that is our patent document. And you can also search or know the trends of what is in a particular technology by searching in this website, the WIPO website, on intellectual property statistics. Oops. Okay. And sorry. One or two. Yeah, I can. Okay. So for online applications, if you want to file for patent online, you just go to e-invention file in our website. And you have here you have to attach this different this application with this content. You have to indicate the title, the brief description of the invention. If there are drawings, you have to describe. You have to submit the complete detailed enabling disclosure, the abstract, and the drawings or sequence listings. So if you are new in drafting patent application, you can search for a similar invention in Google Patents, or if you have some specialized databases like Thomson Innovation. So you can search for similar patents and use that document as a guide in drafting your own application. So this is the invention registration process. When you file your application, it will be filed online, and you have also to pay a certain fee online, and it will be the examiner will conduct formality examination and search, and it will be communicated to you within 6 months from the date of filing. We will give you a non-binding result or an assessment of the patentability of your invention to give you an idea, or to help you decide if you want to file a corresponding patent abroad. Okay, so if your applications will satisfy the requirements of the formality, the substantive examination on novelty, inventive step, and industrial applicability, we will issue the patent. But I would like to mention that in evaluating patent applications, we follow some international timelines. That's because we are a member of the World Intellectual Property Office organization. So we follow some minimum requirements set by the WIPO. And your patent will be granted. The earliest would be at least after 3 years. But on the 18th month, we publish your application. But after publication, we have to conduct the what we call assessment on patentability before we grant or refuse your patent. And this patent is published in the e-gazette of the Intellectual Property Office. So if you want your patent to be protected and commercialized in foreign countries, you can do that via the PCT route you file a corresponding patent using the home application or the Philippine application as your priority application. So we have some procedures, and we can assist you on this particular aspect. And it is also good to mention that the Intellectual Property Office gives reduction of fees for local local inventors and applicants. So we are designated as an international searching authority in 2019. So we also do search for foreign applicants. This is our office, and our website is here. So for online filings, as I mentioned, you just go to our website and go to e-filing for invention. So that's all for, sorry. Can we, are we allowed to answer questions now?
Later pa po, Doc, after the last speaker po.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you po.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Fernandez, for your time and great presentation. It was a pleasure to have you with us po. Thank you. To introduce our third speaker, I would like to call again Ms. Maria Michael Ababan, RPH, ma'am. The floor is yours.
Our third speaker is the Supervising Science Research Specialist from the Invention Development Division and Technology Application and Promotion Institute of the Department of Science and Technology. He is also a member of the National Research Council of the Philippines. Please help me welcome Mr. Cesar Angelito Estokyo Arceo.
Hello po, good evening.
Good evening po.
Good evening, ma'am. I'll have my slide shared. Okay.
Okay na po, sir.
Okay, ma'am, thank you. I'd like to thank the National Research Council of the Philippines for providing me this opportunity to provide you a 10-minute talk. And this is a great privilege for me. This is an honor for me as a member of the National Research Council of the Philippines. And the National Research Council of the Philippines is actually the oldest research council in Asia and perhaps in the world. And this is the only research council that was created. And the first meeting being presided by no less than a president of a country. So ito po, meron pong napaka-rich na history po ang National Research Council of the Philippines natin, ang NRCP. And in fact, ito po ang parang grandmother ng Department of Science and Technology. Dito po nanggaling sa council na ito ang mga policies nung time nila President Quezon, kahit nung time ni President Marcos, hanggang sa pinut up po ang National Development Board, Science and Technology Development Board, and then later on, hanggang fast forward, naging Department of Science and Technology na po siya. And presently, it has 13 divisions. I'd like also to encourage everyone to apply for membership at the NRCP, because this will also allow us to be a part of the wonderful history of the council, and of course to meet great people of all ages po. Meron po mga members dito, pati po ang ating mga retired scientists. Andito rin po sila, nakikita-kita po sa tuwing meron pong General Membership Assembly. And for this, you can just search for the details of the NRCP sa website po nila, and other references that you can find online. So going back to my topic, which is to provide you the perspective of NRCP on IPRs, I've heard talks of our dear Vice President ng CEU. It's a very informative one. I also heard the talk of Ma'am Rosa Fernandez from the IPO field. She is your direct person din po na pwede nyo pong hingan kaagad ng lahat ng mga gusto nyong tanungin o ilapit po sa IPO field. I personally know her. She's a great help to everyone, hindi lang po sa aming mga patent agents, kundi pati po sa mga researchers. We've already collaborated a lot with her and her office. So I think this is also your opportunity. Hindi po sa pinopromote ko rin po sila. This is your great opportunity to reach them sa pagkakataon po na ito. And going back to the topic, the question is, can NRCP patent or protect its IP assets? And dito po, may mga definition of terms from what you can see on the screen. This is based on the IRR, or the Implementing Rules and Regulation of the Philippine Technology Transfer Act of 2009. Yung IRR, which was revised and issued through a joint DOST IPO field administrative order. I encourage you also to download this for you to have the full information on what's the law and the IRR is all about. Nabanggit din po ito ni Ma'am kanina. And dito po maraming mga definitions. Nakikita nyo po dito ang IP, it's for the intangible assets. Discuss na po ito kanina. Ang IPR, ito po yung rights regarding your IP. And then there's also this IPR management. And all of these are intended to protect the intellectual property assets of an institution, hindi lang po ng NRCP, sa case po nyo ng Central Escolar University as well. The short answer is yes. I'm showing you the IP policy of the DOST. Nasa chapter 2 po, section 1, nababanggit po dito that DOST as GFA and or RDI, and kasama po sa in-identify po ng policy na ito ang National Research Council of the Philippines as a government funding agency. Going back to the Tech Trans Act of the Philippines, meron po tayong mga layers po dyan. Sa Tech Trans Act natin, the RA 10055, and later explained in detail by the IRR, jointly issued by the DOST and the IPO field, meron po dyan mga tinatawag na roles yung pong government funding agency. For example, kami po sa DOST magiging funder ng research projects ninyo. And in your case, pagka magpo-propose po kayo, for example, sa NRCP, NRCP will be the GFA, and then kayo as researchers of the Centro Escolar University, sa Centro Escolar University, siya po yung magiging RDI na tinatawag natin, which is the Research and Development Institute. Then kayo po na mga researchers under po sa CEU, under din po kayo ng RDI. But the relationship is this: the GFA funds the project, ang accountable sa GFA ay ang RDI, and siyempre sa loob, for example, sa inyo po, sa Centro Escolar University, ang mga researchers naman po accountable po sa RDIs, or sa case niyo ay ang sa CEU. So in this case, ang relationship po na yan, naka-default po sa Tech Trans Act natin, ang owner ng IP ay ang GFA. Ang owner ng IP ay ang RDI. And the GFA can also own the IP if stipulated, for example, sa research funding agreement po na tinatawag, or the RSA. In this case, ang isa pong na-settle na sabi nating issue or concern ng DOST nung ni-release po yung revised IRR natin for the Tech Trans Act ay yung pag-define ngayon ng GFA at saka RDI. In our case, ang NRCP ay pwede rin siya actually na maging RDI. So kung magiging strict po tayo sa definition ng law na ang pwede lang mag-own ng IP ay ang RDI, sa case po ng NRCP, yes, NRCP can also own its IP. So, yung mga nitty-gritties po nito ay nasa secretariat na po natin, nasa mga specialist natin sa NRCP. If you will be interested to get funding from NRCP, to join NRCP, to work with NRCP or collaborate with NRCP, may mga policies po tayo dito, and ang basic po natin ay ang mga DOST issued policies na nag-govern din po sa NRCP. But for the details, in fact, isa po sa pinakamaluluwag po na mga agencies na alam ko pagdating sa IP ownership ay ang NRCP, kasi hindi lamang po ang NRCP ang owner ng IP, kundi pati rin po yung RDI na kung saan ay affiliated ang researcher, and also the researcher mismo kasama rin po na owner po noong IP. So ito rin po isa sa mga magaganda po sa NRCP pagdating po sa IP ownership. Moving forward, these are some of the IP assets of NRCP. In fact, meron na pong portfolio ang NRCP. If you will just look into the database of the Google Patents, meron pong 19 patent documents po dyan na nakakredit po sa NRCP. Sa ating IPO field, meron po dyan 15. And as early as kung kailan man po yun, may mga patent applications na rin po actually ang NRCP. And since then, even before the Tech Trans Act, nagpapa-IP na rin po ang NRCP. So these are just some of those I can just divulge as the agent of the IP applications of NRCP, kasi yung mga iba siguro mas mainam na sila na rin po ang magpakita. Dito lang po yung mga pwede ko pong ipakita sa inyo as the agent, and being the published IP applications or patent documents of the NRCP. So far, meron pong 4 na granted utility models na po ang NRCP, and 1 patent is incoming for allowance na po ito. And what you can see in the screen, it was filed in 2014, the insecticide from Gliricidia sepium or kakawate. Ito po perhaps ang magiging kauna-unahan pong patent document or patent na nag-grant po in the name of the National Research Council of the Philippines. There are also some metrics po at the upper right portion of the screen. Nandyan po yung galing po ito sa Google Patents. I don't have anything to do with these analytics. Nakalagay po dyan yung mga top inventors po ng National Research Council of the Philippines. Ito pong si Dr. Rosalinda Torres, siya po ay taga-DOST din po siya, member po siya ng NRCP, but working or affiliated at another agency. Marami po siyang mga na-file po ng mga patents, and some of these were already converted to utility model applications, and I think they are also awaiting for the certificates for these. Since NRCP can be or is an IP owner, the tech trans protocol of the DOST can also apply to NRCP. So sa tech trans protocol po ng DOST, nakalagay po rito on how to identify, disclose, protect, manage, promote, disseminate, transfer, or ito po yung so far for me, kasi ito po yung interest ng aking agency, commercialize the projects or the IPRs that are being generated from the government funding or from its funding. So ito po co-cover din po sa NRCP. Of course, please you can download this document kasi my talk or my chance to be with you is very, very short. Pwede nyo po itong i-access din. Pwede nyo mabasa yung buo. And at the same time, we also have a protocol to manage the IP. Mag-a-apply din po ito sa NRCP. Ito po ay kung paano po i-manage yung atin pong portfolio ng IP sa DOST. Another thing before we leave this particular portion, the GFAs of the DOST or the government funding agencies of the DOST, if they are initially not interested to own the IP, they can still perform the march-in rights for that. Ibig sabihin, kaya po lang i-take over ang IP ng kahit na sino sa kanilang mga pinondohan if in case sa tingin nila kailangan na nilang i-take over. And ito po ay makikita nyo rin po doon sa ating pong revised IRR. Hindi pa po ito na-implement ng DOST, pero sana naman po hindi po ito ma-implement sa ating mga SUCs or sa ating mga universities na nakakuha ng funding sa DOST. Kasi siyempre, di po ba dapat nagpo-proactive po ang mga universities to commercialize their respective technologies. And another final note po siguro on this aspect, patenting is a business decision. Napaka-costly po kasi niya, magastos po ito. So if in case CEU, for example, decides to patent any technology sa kanyang technology portfolio, ibig sabihin po nun, ang next step po dun ay ang business aspect po nung technology na yon. Meron pong intention to commercialize that particular technology kasi di po ba napakagastos po nito. But if in case nagtitipid po kayo or wala pong budget ng kahit na sino po sa mga attendees po ng ating webinar ngayon, siguro this will be a shameless advertisement. You can also reach us as a possible funder of your IP. Wala po kaming i-take over sa inyo. Tutulungan lang po namin kayo na ma-file ang inyong IP application sa IPO field, gastusan yung mga cost, government at saka mga professional services para po makakuha po kayo ng IP para po sa inyong mga technologies. So you can just check our website tapi.dost.gov.ph or yung isa po yung techtrans.gov.ph. We'll now see for our live case, pectin for example. Kasi kanina nakita nyo po dito na meron pong tatlo na utility models ang NRCP sa pectin. So paano po kaya ito? Hanggang IP lang po ba ito? Hanggang patent lang po ba o utility model ito? Of course not. And besides, pectin has been a good example of a researchable area as well. Kasi di po ba napakaraming mga applications ang pectin kahit po sa inyo sa field po ninyo sa pharma, alam niyo po yan, marami pong applications yan sa drug delivery, for example, sa mga compositions natin. Pwede pong gamitan ng pectin, and since this is ubiquitous, this is a very basic compound that can be extracted in practically any cell na depende po sa purpose siyempre or application na gagamitin. It will be an interesting area to check kasi katulad dito sa based sa publications na sa lens.org, upward po siya, pataas ng pataas yung kanyang publications per year. Of course, there's a drop here sa 2021 kasi di po ba pandemic ngayon, and hindi pa naman tapos ang taon. Pero we will see sa 2022 kung nasaan po yung point na ito sa 2021. But for this trend, as far as we're concerned, increasing po yung interest sa pectin. And I also checked the global or the landscape of pectin internationally and found out that out of 1,676 patent documents and using the keywords pectin, itong pectin po na to lumalabas mismo sa claim ng patent document, specifically sa first claim, and the application is on drugs or on medicine or medicinal applications. Meron po akong nakuha na 1,600 plus or 1,700 patent documents, and interpolating as well some of or sabihin natin lahat ng mga patent documents sa Pilipinas related to pectin. Makikita natin kaagad dito, this is a very beautiful map where we can see the spaces covered by those patent documents. Sa case po na to, yung black na nakikita po ninyo, ito yung mga Philippine applications. Ito yung mga phenyl sa ating IPO field. Nakakalat po sila. Some of them are revolutionary in fact, and some of them are already clustered in areas na kung saan marami na ring mga competition or mataas na yung competition. Kumbaga sabi nga po natin sa patenting, they're already in a crowded area. Interestingly, ang yellow po na ito po yung mga patent documents coming from the National Research Council of the Philippines. Ito po yung pag-aari ng NRCP. And if we will zoom this in, makikita po natin dito na it seems to us, kasi katulad ko po, nag-value na rin po kami ng mga technology, malaki po ang potential na premium on this kasi from here, makikita ninyo na there's a possibility that the patent documents or being owned by the National Research Council of the Philippines, sila po yung nag-lead into the clustering of this area. And then there's one na medyo outlier pa siya, and we'll see later pagka na-develop pa yan kung ano na yung mangyayari sa pinaka-landscape natin. But as far as NRCP is concerned, ito po ang makikita natin, mukhang siya ay nagre-revolutionize pagdating po sa extraction po ng pectin. And this, pagkasusumpa po natin further, makikita natin ito yung tatlong patent documents from the NRCP or being owned by the National Research Council of the Philippines. So we have several questions to ask actually, and depende rin po ito sa magiging direction ng NRCP. I am not here to talk in behalf of NRCP. I'm just here to provide some insights on what NRCP is already doing. But for the policy directions of NRCP, I'm so sorry, I cannot comment on that. Baka magtatanong po kayo sa akin, especially that I'm just an associate member of the NRCP. Yes, dati po akong specialist po sa NRCP, but I don't have the authority to represent NRCP for that particular level of discussion. So what you can see on the screen are just some of the guide questions that NRCP may be willing to explore, and of course this may also motivate you kung saan man po kayo affiliated, mapa sa CEU man po kayo or sa ibang universities. Ito po yung mga questions in mind actually after having or after starting to protect your IP. So ano ba yung mga ipupustro ninyo, ano pa yung mga i-develop nyo further, and if ever you already have the experience of getting or proposing projects sa DOST, siguro mapapansin po ninyo na ang mga councils natin sa DOST, meron na silang mga requirements for the novelty, kung minsan pati sa inventive step, you already have to do your prior art search. And meron pong councils, I know, pati po ang commercialization, tinitingnan na rin po nila. So ito po yung reasons, these are the guide questions para kayo po kung halimbawa in your future career, if you're not yet into R&D, you can consider these questions to guide you in what you will be doing later in your professional growth. Another outlook is in way back in 2013 po yata, 2014, 2013, something like that. I was interviewed by the GMA on biopiracy. This is still a very hot topic right now. Alam niyo po kasi kaliwat kanan, lagi po tayong may mga istorya ng pagnanakaw ng IP. In fact, kahit nga po sa inyo, kahit siguro kaklase ninyo, o kayo mismo, nagkaroon kayo ng experience na sarili nyong gawa, iba ang na-credit o nakakuha ng credit. So ito po ay hindi bago sa inyo. And for this particular article, this is something about biopiracy or stealing of traditional knowledge from the Philippines, for example. Nakapagbigay ng isang example si Ma'am Rosa kanina, si Madam Fernandez. And siyempre masakit po siya kasi this is ours, this is our heritage, this is endemic in the Philippines, and yet we cannot exploit them fully kasi nga hindi naman tayo ang may-ari ng IP. And on this particular interview, I provided them some misconceptions. For example, kasi akala ng mga scientists, pag may patent sa Pilipinas, sa buong mundo, pwede na yon. Of course, hindi. May territoriality tayong requirement. Ito yung isa sa mga gaps na alam ko matagal nang may effort ang IPO field para i-patch siya kung saan kailangan po i-up sa market, foreign market. We're talking about other countries here, yung ating mga technologies na nandito sa Pilipinas. And in the case of DOST, ang amin namang nagiging goal ay kung paano makatulong sa ating Global Innovation Index. So, yun din ang naging reason kung bakit if you've heard about the efforts of the DOST, there was this time that we beefed up our IP applications from the usual 20 or 30, naging 100 per year siya. Ngayon, alam niyo po, ang 1,000 sa amin ay parang napakasimple na siya. So, may mga requirements sa patenting, may mga coverage yan. Kailangan natin magpapatent sa ibang bansa. Kung halimbawa, meron kayong marketable product sa ibang bansa, you seek for patent protection in those countries and para hindi kayo kasama dun sa mga magrereklamo ng biopiracy. And another thing, and dito rin po nabanggit ko rin na walang proper audit at that time ng mga biological materials dito sa Pilipinas. I think hanggang ngayon wala pa rin proper audit. There are efforts left and right of course, pero kailangan na pong ma-harmonize ito. I'm actually looking into a possibility katulad po halimbawa sa pagde-database ng mga traditional Chinese medicine, mga TCM natin, TCM nila. Ito isa sa mga napaka-comprehensive na mga databases. In fact, even our plants here that are endemic in the Philippines, andun din. So, challenge po yun sa atin. Kailangan nating magtulong-tulong sa area po na ito. And of course, I'll also plug the recently launched IPO Field DOST initiative. Meron na pong superhighway. If in case you have DOST-funded projects na meron pong IP asset kayong nakikita dyan, ito po ifa-fast track ang filing hanggang sa mag-grant yung ating IP applications. Ito po ay isang napaka-solid ngayon na partnership between the DOST and the IPO field. which the NRCP will also take advantage of with my full optimism kasi nga under po sa DOST ang NRCP. So this is one of the few final slides. I'm just sharing to you one of developing models for the exploitation of IPs. Ito ay pinresent ko po noon sa Sweden, and nagka-interest po ang PRV or the Swedish Patent Office and the WIPO expert sa industrial sa traditional knowledge division nila doon. Pinresent ko rin po ito sa Geneva. Napakasimple lang po nung concept na ito. When we do or when we craft policies, when we enhance our programs, when we identify researchable areas, we consult not just the R&D roadmaps that we have. Marami tayo nito. Alam ko po, aware kayo dyan. But also, you also have to consider consulting the industry roadmaps and to interpolate the data that you will get from your patent landscapes. And all of these, magiging input po siya into a policy. Meron po ako mga initial na mga data dito. Perhaps I can publish some. Pero ito po yung pinaka-model po na pinopropose ko po. One more thing, NRCP is also a hub, especially that it is the agency that takes the lead in the basic research in the country. Meron po tayong tinatawag din na NIBRA. I'm sure familiar na po kayo doon. NRCP, I think, since nasa basic research siya, it can be a rich source, yung mga projects niya, source of patents. Kasi di po ba, pagka meron tayong mga basic questions na sinasagot natin sa science, and we already got the basic answer, and magkakaroon lang ng konting mga translational effort dito para mapakinabangan siya ng society. Of course, dun mismo yung basic answers na yon, they can be good candidates for patent protection. So ito po yung ilan lang sa mga pwede kong i-share po sa inyo as an associate member of the National Research Council of the Philippines. With this, I'd like to thank you all for this opportunity. The NRCP, thank you very much. Central Escolar University, of course, thank you rin po sa opportunity na to.
It was a pleasure to have you with us, sir. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Now to introduce our last speaker, Ma'am Maria Michael Ababan. Ma'am, the floor is yours.
Our last speaker is from the National Sun Yat-sen University, Taiwan. He took his bachelor's degree in biology in Fujian University, Taiwan, and his Doctor of Philosophy in Life Science in National Tsinghua University, also from Taiwan. His field of research is on cancer genetics and genomics, precision medicine, chromatin remodeling, cytoskeleton, cell adhesion, migration invasion, mechanotransduction, complementary and alternative medicine, and antibody vaccine engineering. He is also a professional member of American and European Association for Cancer Research, the chair professor of the Institute of Biomedical Sciences, National Sun Yat-sen University, Taiwan, and adjunct professor in Human Genetics Center, China Medical University Hospital. Ladies and gentlemen, our speaker, Dr. Jim Chin Kwan Zhu.
So good evening, everyone. It's very nice to be here with you. Thank you for the organizer to invite me to share my story with you. Different from the previous speakers who may focus on more about administrative regulation, today I would like to share some stories about my research. The title for my presentation is Ribosome Biogenesis in Endometriosis Development. I have my collaborators, Dr. Cherry Yin Zhang from China Medical University Hospital, and also Dr. Eric Reeves from University of Edinburgh. Today, I would like to share with you about my study in endometriosis. Why we want to study endometriosis? Because endometriosis is a very common disease for the woman, especially at the age of a productive age. So it's about 1 in 10 in female. So the population is very high. It's about 176 million people who are suffer from these diseases. In Taiwan, it's about 600,000 patients. Okay. Sorry, I don't know whether you can see my slides. If yes, I would like to continue. Okay.
We cannot see your slide, sir.
See your slides.
Can you see?
No, sir.
Not yet po.
Okay. So shall I go back to my presentation again?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, I may restart again. Okay. Thank you for inviting me to share my study with you. Today, I would like to share some research study about ribosome biogenesis in endometriosis development. My collaborators include Dr. Cherry Zhang from China Medical University Hospital. The other one is Dr. Eric Reeves from University of Edinburgh. So why we want to study endometriosis? Because the population of the patient with this disease is very high. It's about 1 in 10 in female at the production age. And then if we estimate the global patients, about 176 million people suffer from this disease. In Taiwan, it's almost about 600,000 patients. And then if we estimate for the treating cost, the cost is very high as well. And then it's about, and the cost is almost equal to the cost for treating the diabetes. So
excuse me, Prof. Are you sharing your slide? Can you share your slide, please? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you,
Right
Prof.
now, okay?
Yes, Prof.
I'm sorry. Thank you. So
Your
why we
slides
want
is already visible.
is right now okay?
Yes, yes.
Yes, Doc.
So how the matrix affect our lives? There's very pain in the abdomen, and then because of the pain, sometimes you will have some problem between the couples. And then the most problem would be the infertility caused by this disease. And then the scientists have demonstrated at the end of this disease, endometriosis will give you a higher risk to to get ovarian cancer. So that's the reason we want to study endometriosis. So what's the current limitation for treating endometriosis? Right now, we have known that the first thing to do would be the surgery. However, we know that after surgery, the recurrent rate would be very, very high. And then at the clinic, the current treatment right now is a kind of hormone therapy. But we have known that this hormone therapy will also cause you to be infertile. So it cannot solve the problem for the infertility. So right now, I think there's an urgent need to develop the new drugs for treating such diseases. So that's the reason we want to study endometriosis. And what we have learned from our study. In the past several years, our study focused on more about the genetic variation during the endometriosis. Especially, we focus on the mucin proteins because we know that the mucin protein provide a protective layer at the reproductive tract. So after that, we focus on more about the microRNA profiling in the development of these diseases. And then we found that there's a very unique microRNA, we call it MIR169A2. We found that the variation in this microRNA can correlate with the development of endometriosis development, especially the risk factor for the risk allele for this gene can also upregulate the ribosome biogenesis. As shown the data here, you can see that in the endometriotic lesions, you can see patient with the risk allele for this genetic, the microRNA, the overall ribosome biogenesis activity is higher as compared to the normal tissues. And we have just shown you that at the end of this disease, the endometriosis patient can have a higher risk to get the ovarian cancer. So on the right panel, you can see during the cancer development, such machinery, ribosome biogenesis, can also be upregulated in the clinical samples. So based on this study, we have demonstrated upregulation of ribosome biogenesis could be one of the possible driving forces to promote this disease and also provide an energy for malignant transition. This study, after we published this study, there's another review group from the F1000 Prime. He said they indicate our study could be a very unique finding and also provide new direction for possible treatment. So our idea is that because the ribosome biogenesis is a kind of machinery to produce protein and also provide energy. So it's kind of an indicator of active cell proliferating activity in the cells. Based on the previous study, we have known that if we block this machinery, it can cause cell death. And also can stop the cell proliferation, and then could be very beneficial for cancer with upregulation of ribosome biogenesis. So we would like to test whether this machinery could be used as a target for treating endometriosis and also the associated malignancies. So in order to prove our idea, we would like to develop certain animal models. So we have known that if you want to establish a good disease model, basically you need to the model need to show some histological relevance. And also we have known that a patient with endometriosis, they suffer from a lot of pain. So this pain could be caused by long-term inflammation. So a good animal model need to have also some tissue microenvironment like relevant to the long-term inflammation. And also, a good model can also allow us to determine the pain, and also we can do some behavior study to demonstrate the pain relief. However, if you search for the literature, you will know that currently there is no good model that can mimic the real scenario in human, especially for long-term inflammation and also the pain relief. So we would like to collaborate with Dr. Eric Reams at Edinburgh University because she was the person who established a mouse model that can mimic not just only the histological features of endometriosis, but also the long-term inflammation and also the nerve development. So we would like to we collaborated with her and to establish this mouse model in our lab. This is just the pipeline for the development to establish this animal model. You can see we can generate the reproductive tract with the blood, and also like mimic the menstrual cycles. And also once we collect this tissue and transplant to the recipient, after 3 weeks, the recipient will develop the endometriosis lesion, and also we can determine the microenvironment in the mice, and also we can determine the behavior study. We can perform the behavior study to measure the pain score. This is the results we receive. Basically, we would like to use this mouse model and to treat them with the inhibitors that can block the ribosome biogenesis. We use 2 drugs, one for the inhibitor that can block the RNA polymerase 1, because we have known that the RNA polymerase 1 is the RNA polymerase that can synthesize the ribosome RNA. So we use the CS as the drug to inhibit the ribosome RNA polymerase 1. And also we use another drug that can block the upstream signaling. It's the GSK drug. This drug can block the upstream signaling, so that can also result in the reduction of ribosome biogenesis. As shown the data here, you can see after we treat the mice with those drugs, you can see that can significantly reduce the lesion in the mice. And secondly, you can see if we measure the inflammation condition in the mice, you can see those drugs can significantly reduce the long-term inflammation in these mice. And also you can see the overall activity just increased because of the pain relief. And also when we measure the pain sensitivity, you can see the drug treatment can also relieve the pain, so the mice will not become so sensitive to the stimulation. So our study proved that our drug basically can block the ribosome biogenesis, and also can reduce the development of endometriosis, and also the associated long-term inflammation and the pain. Then we would like to study whether such treatment can also used as the predictive treatment that can block the possible malignant transition. Previous study based on the genetic evolution, they have discovered that at the end of this disease, the endometriotic lesion contains several mutations already, which can be also detected in the ovarian cancer. So it means that at the end of the endometriosis, you can see those lesions, they actually contain all the necessary mutations already. But if you ask the pathologist, they will still tell you at the end of this endometriosis, they still consider those lesions as the benign tumor, not a real carcinoma. So the only differences for me, I would say, at the end of this endometriosis, it contains all the necessary mutation. But why the cell will not become malignancy just because the cell do not have enough energy. So ribosome biogenesis in the cell is just kind of the energy sources, and it just can feel the gas, so the car can run right now. So the idea for me would be if we can block the ribosome biogenesis, probably we can also reduce the energy, so the car will not have enough gas, and then the car cannot run. So if we want to prove our idea, we would like to check whether the ribosome biogenesis is high at the terminal stage of the endometriosis. This is just the figure that can show you patient at the end of a patient at the advanced stage of endometriosis, they show very high expression level of the ribosome biogenesis marker. And then if we treat them, so that support our idea that at the end of these stages, if we can enhance the ribosome biogenesis, it can help to do the cell transition. So the patient will further to develop ovarian cancer. So to prove our idea whether we can use the ribosome biogenesis as the target, we establish another mouse model that can develop ovarian cancer. And also we treat them with the drug, the CS5461 and also the GSK drugs. You can see on the right panel, the mouse treated with those drugs that can reduce the tumor formation. And this is the figure for you to know that after we treat the mice with those drugs that can significantly reduce the tumor formation in the mice. So that means those drugs are very effective to block the ribosome biogenesis and also to block the development of the tumors in the mice as well. So based on those findings and our study, we find some patents for possible application at the clinic. One direction would be we use ribosome biogenesis as the possible diagnostic markers. So we can use those markers to predict which patient may have higher risk to develop ovarian cancer. And then also we find another patent that we can detect such alteration by using the pap smear. So those two patents are related to diagnosis application. The other one would be we use ribosome biogenesis as the target, and based on our study, we proved that we use those targets and the specific inhibitor to block the ribosome biogenesis could be effective to reduce the development of endometriosis and also the associated tumor formation. So thank you for your patience, and it's very happy for me to share my study with you. Thank you.
Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, Professor Jim. We know that you're a busy person. It was a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving forward, for giving of certificate, and after this, we will have our closing remarks. So let me read the contents of the certificates. Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is presented to Ms. Rosa Fernandez for sharing her valuable knowledge as guest speaker in the webinar on on patent protection for pharmaceutical products via Zoom on 24th of April 2021. Next, Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is presented to Dr. Mr. Cesar Angelito Eschoco Arceo for sharing his valuable knowledge as guest speaker in the webinar on perspective of National Council on Health Research of the Philippines on Intellectual Property Rights via Zoom on 24th of April 2021. Another certificate of appreciation. This certificate is presented to Dr. Erna Yabut for sharing her valuable knowledge as guest speaker in the webinar on intellectual property and university policies on knowledge and discovery via Zoom on 24th of April 2021. And last, Certificate of Appreciation. This certificate is presented to Professor Jim Jin Chuan Chu for sharing his valuable knowledge as guest speaker in the webinar on ribosome biogenesis in endometriosis development via Zoom on 24th of April 2021. So we thank you, our dear speakers, for imparting your knowledge to all of us. If you have any for the participants, if you have any other questions to our presenter, just a reminder, please be sure to type your questions in the question box in your control panel. So I think we're good for now. Thank you, everyone. To finally end our webinar, may I invite Dr. Erwin Fallier to give the closing remarks. Sir, you may now take the floor.
Okay, thank you very much to Professor Jim, and also to the beloved speakers a while ago mentioned from DOST, from NRCP, also from IPO. Thank you very much to all. I think we have learned a lot, and we have cherished this moment because with our expertise in research and development, we have been through our postgraduate studies, through masters and PhD. The mere question is that as a pharmacist and as an inventor and as a scientist, what have we contributed then in terms of patency, at the same time also innovation in the country? And I think, and I do believe that all of us as a pharmacist, as a scientist, and as an innovator, we need really to contribute so that we'll be able to uplift the country, at the same time also resolve the global problems, the top 10 mortality and morbidity in the country. And this is actually our mission, vision, and of course our goal now as a scientist and as a pharmacist towards solving global problems. To my students who are the organizers for this, thank you very much. It was really superb with the all the shall we say expertise with our speakers. They really deliver a lot of us, and we are really encouraged with Professor Jim talking to us about his innovation. We are really envy then, no? Because with this, I think this is a time for us to really collaborate with National Sun Yat-sen. They are very willing also to have collaboration, and also with the leadership of Dr. Erna Yabut, also from CEU, was very open to all of us to connect with global partners also. To Dean Cecil, who is very supportive in the School of Pharmacy, the IPO, the DOST, and NRCP, who is very willing also to support with us throughout the process. We would like to encourage for those masters and PhD to become a member of the National Research Council of the Philippines. I think you are all convinced we need really to innovate and develop new products in the market. I think with your specialties right now going towards postgraduate degree, this is not only to finish and to have accomplished certificate. Certificate is nothing without patency, without innovation, without publishing your books and publication. We need really to contribute because, as we all know, the ranking of the Philippines then, I think we should be positive. You, of all of us, in 125 participants right now, if all of us will contribute at least one innovation, our country would really develop. Our people will really elevate in terms of healthcare in the country. So thank you very much because our students really are very innovative. They are the future. And I believe that they are really the future of our country. Thank you very much with the partnership of National Sun Yat-sen, to CEU, to other partners who are here, to my students who are very supportive from different universities. They're really here to support us in terms of this endeavor. They are the future. And thank you very much to all for this. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you everyone for attending today's webinar on intellectual property rights on pharmaceutical product development. Now we will have our picture taking by taking screenshot. We have several pages on our Zoom. May I request the participants to have their smile ready for our documentation. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Another one. Last one. 1, 2, 3. Thank you, everyone. Once you leave today's webinar, you will receive a survey on the presentation, and we would appreciate if you would complete that and provide your feedback. You will also receive a follow-up email within 24 to 48 hours for your certificates. Before you leave this webinar, let us hear first the pharmacy hymn.
All the ages gone by, to the years that are yet to be, pharmacy thou stand ever glorious, the mission of integrity, the hand that shaped our past, the mind that made the last, shall always be our guardian and brightest hope of all men. With voices from our grateful hearts, we hail pharmacy. Through all the ages gone by, to the years that are yet to be, pharmacy thou stand ever glorious, the mission of integrity, the hand that shaped our past, the mind that made the last, shall always be our guardian and brightest hope of all men. With voices from our grateful hearts, we hail pharmacy. With voices from our grateful hearts, we hail pharmacy.
On behalf of our class, MSP 236, and to my classmates and to all presenters, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much.